Hello! Sorry this video is late. If you're new this generation, I try to upload my videos at noon CDT, Central Daylight Time, on the day they're due. Although this has become a lot more difficult in the last few months, so I would just expect these videos at some point in the afternoon. Although, I can't always finish the video on the day it's due, so instead I will do a live stream, sneak peek video, or substitute video. Anyway, today I'll be starting Gen 6. For those of you who didn't watch the first video or have forgotten, this continues off from yesterday, as the BYC shifts as new Pokémon are added. So despite the fact that the 6th generation of games was released about a year after Pokémon Black 2 and White 2, it is added to the original year cycle. Chespin is today's topic. Before we get into that though, I want to take this opportunity to reintroduce the series for those of you who are joining us for Gen 6. After that, like Gen 5, we'll talk about the major changes introduced in Gen 6. If you want to get to that, skip to the next chapter in the video. If you want to get into the Chespin information, skip 2 chapters in the video. Anyway, those of you who are new, welcome to the Pokemon Year Cycle. Or PYC for short, a series where I cover one Pokemon per day. I pretend like the PYC is a real thing that began on February 27th, 1996, and has continued to this day. Each day is a different Pokemon, and as Pokemon are added, the cycle gets longer. I start off each video by introducing the Pokemon. I'll usually add a notable descriptor, like if it's the first, last, tallest, shortest, heaviest, lightest, etc., in a category and a generation. If it has an alternate form with a typing I haven't talked about yet, I'll talk about that. I then talk about the Pokemon's previous 10 PYC dates, as we're in the 11th PYC, and there are more Pokemon than there are days in the Earth year. I then give my opinion on the Pokemon. It's usually just its design and any specific memories I have of the Pokemon and its alternate forms. Although, as I mentioned in Gen 5, I stopped playing the games and watching the anime in Gen 4, so it'll mostly be in reference to the spin-off games, particularly the mobile games, other content creators, and gameplay I've watched. I then go into the article on Bulbapedia, a Pokémon wiki. I'll get more in-depth on that when we cover it today. I then watch the first scene of the anime featuring the subject Pokémon to the best of my ability. Although it's not always the first physical appearance of the Pokémon, as I count just about any representation of the Pokémon if I can. Sometimes the scene goes for too long and I have to cut it down to avoid a copyright claim. If that happens, I upload the full video on my Patreon. Although, right now, I can't add any more videos as I don't currently have any patrons, and there's a limit to how much I can upload without patrons. When I am able to upload videos again, I will continue to add videos until they implement some sort of copyright detection system, assuming they haven't already. While I wouldn't specifically link the Patreon version of the video in my description, my Patreon link is at the bottom of the description. Here you can watch the video for free. You don't even have to be a patron. But I very much prefer if you were. I want to make this series for everyone, and I don't think a copyright claim should restrict that. After the anime section, if a Pokemon appears in the Detective Pikachu movie, I watch the frames featuring the Pokemon to the best of my ability. There aren't many Gen 6 Pokemon in the film, so this will be quite infrequent. If I have a Pokemon trading card game, TCG, card featuring the Pokemon, I then talk about that. I don't have many Gen 6 Pokemon, so this too will be quite infrequent. I then add who the next Pokemon with the card I have is. I then attempt to feature the opinions of others using a post from the Posts tab on my channel page. I don't get many responses though. If you have an opinion on a Pokemon, please feel free to share on those posts, knowing they'll be featured in a video. I add 7 of them every week on Saturday, as the original plan was to record them all at once a week later, but I get so few responses that I can usually record it the night before, if necessary. If no one responds to these posts, I put up this slide with remixed Pokemon music in the background. Although I'll only be doing it once this generation, as far as I'm currently aware, sometimes I wear different outfits to celebrate special times of the year, particularly major holidays. So I changed the logo to fit the outfit I'm wearing. I also changed the music to computer-generated music. If you respond to the posts after I've completed the video, I plan to create YouTube shorts to cover these responses. This will be true of the fan art as well, which is the next section of the video. Regarding the fan art section, the hope is that viewers will submit art by tweeting @GreenTieTweet, using the hashtag #PYC, insert national Pokedex number of the Pokemon, including a 0 if it's before Pokemon 1000. Alternatively, you can also do the same on my Tumblr, although you don't necessarily need to @me there. The images don't even need to relate to me, or even be by you, as long as you credit the original artist. If I don't get any fan art, I instead go to DeviantArt and cover upwards of the first page of results for that Pokemon. I also link that art in the description. When I get into the fan art section today, I'll go over the rules more in depth. After that, I do the outro, where I start by generally thanking people who have submitted fan art. I do this even if no one submits fan art because A, I already filmed that section assuming someone has submitted fan art, and B, I think it's funny. I then talk about streaming to get Pokemon in their original games to the best of my ability, except for the ones I need to wait to get until later games, particularly the alternate forms. I then talk about the next Pokemon I'll be talking about, and do my send-off. After the video on my gaming channel, Green Tie Gaming, I try to stream that evening, night, or in the case of Gen 4, 5, and 6, day or even morning, if necessary, to get the Pokemon I haven't gotten yet. Sometimes I find myself behind, as sometimes certain Pokemon appear after Pokemon that I haven't talked about yet, or otherwise can't be encountered without the help of those Pokemon. That works well for the first few generations, I'm pretty sure that includes this generation, but I don't know if newer games have set spawns like the older ones do, so I'll update this later if needed. I also don't have time to always stream, particularly on Tuesday nights. Although, with me playing Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire to get the alternate forms of Gen 3 through 5 Pokemon, and when I play Pokemon X and Y, this isn't/won't be the case, as the 3DS has a short enough battery life. Although, because of time-based spawning and evolution, my streaming schedule may change from day to day. I link to the stream in a YouTube post and a tweet. Because of the aforementioned time-based Pokemon spawning, some of these videos will come out before noon. I'll try to let you know when that happens. I'd also like to introduce new viewers to Squirtle. Within the established lore, he comes from the Pokemon world and has somehow entered our world. His first appearance was the Magby video. He doesn't speak, but his thoughts are represented as thought bubbles. He usually doesn't have any input, but will occasionally express thoughts on things, sometimes acting as a replacement for the editor's note. This is just a snowman. He's not a character, just a Summer prop, and will only be in the videos the next week or so. Before we get into the big changes in Gen 6, I want to mention that the final day of this generation is currently March 11th, 2026, meaning that it passes Pokemon Day 2026, which will have an official Pokemon livestream, where there's a possibility that the Pokemon Company will announce new Pokemon, which would cause the PYC to shift. I will go more into that on February 26th, assuming that they don't announce any new Pokemon between tomorrow and then. If that happens, I'll let you know about the shift. Anyway, while Gen 5 was something of a black sheep of the Pokemon generations, Gen 6 was a major shift for the games. It introduced 3 major changes that would impact the Pokemon games moving forward. First, it made the jump to full 3D. Looking back, it's kind of funny how Satoshi Tajiri was told to make the games 3D originally, just for the games to eventually become 3D. While Gen 4 and 5 had 3D environments, Gen 6 marked the first time in the mainline games that all of the elements would now be 3D. This, notably the Pokemon, was hugely controversial. As I've shown over the last 5 generations, the transition to 3D wasn't always a flawless one for Pokemon, especially the further back you go. These models are considered inferior to those featured in 3D home console games. The decision to use textures rather than fully model the Pokemon didn't help to clear up some ambiguity for some Pokemon, like Excelgor, who either has a hole or a marking on its head. The desaturated colors also didn't help. The animations have also been criticized for their limitation in movement. As someone who's played Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, I can say that at times, it really looks like playing with action figures. That said, a lot of good came from the transition to 3D. The animations for most moves are a lot more exciting than just watching a graphic on a screen. Textures like Pokemon and Case and Ice were vastly superior to their sprite counterparts. The Pokemon models and their animations would improve as the generations went on, and I think at this point, most fans are satisfied with the current models, at least in their general designs and animations. I think the transition would have been made easier if Gen 6 also didn't introduce its second major change, introducing overpowering gimmicks. Gen 6 introduced Mega Evolution, a temporary state given to fully evolved Pokemon that allows the Pokemon to get higher stats, take on a new form, and sometimes change their types through a stone that only works for them. I don't know why Game Freak thought this was needed, but it's clearly a beloved mechanic, existing in Gen 6, 7, and most recently Legends EA, as well as a few spin-off games. It's a fun gimmick, but it isn't without flaw. One major flaw was how it was originally implemented, which is that it is chosen in battle and remains until the battle ends or until the Mega Evolved Pokemon faints. You also weren't allowed to Mega Evolve more than one Pokemon in a battle. The former at least changed in Legends ZA, where it was put on a timer system, which allows the Pokemon to be Mega Evolved outside of the battle. Each generation would add a new gimmick, with Mega Evolution arguably being the worst, not by what it does, but by its exclusivity. By making it only apply to fully evolved Pokemon and making some of the Mega Stones be game exclusive, it leads to players choosing evolutionary lines that Mega Evolve over those that don't. This was especially true when so few Pokemon were able to Mega Evolve. Now there are a lot of Mega Evolutions. So, while players are still likely to choose Pokemon who eventually Mega Evolve, players are likely to encounter them by just choosing a Pokemon and having it coincidentally Mega Evolve. X and Y were particularly criticized by fans for not unlocking many of the Mega Stones till after the game's story was complete, and apparently not having much of a post-story game to use them in battle. The third major change was the introduction of the Fairy type. For the first time in 4 generations, a new type was added. Like Steel before it was retroactively added to several Pokemon. Its addition also changed how many Pokemon were balanced regarding type effectiveness. Whether it be the addition of the Fairy type to some Pokemon, or how the type effectiveness chart was rebalanced to account for the Fairy type. Another thing that makes Gen 6 different is that within Gen 6, there was no third game that acted as a refined version or a sequel. Although some have speculated that a third game or sequel games were intended, but were scrapped to focus on the Gen 7 games. Anyway, let's finally talk about Chespin. Chespin is the grass starter of Gen 6. As such, it is also the first grass Pokemon and Pokemon to evolve introduced in Gen 6. It's also the first grass starter to be based on a mammal. Its previous PYC dates are December 7th, 1997, September 27th, 2000, July 19th, 2003, May 9th, 2006, February 27th, 2009, December 19th, 2011, October 9th, 2014, July 30th, 2017, May 20th, 2020, and March 11th, 2023. I think Chespin is cute, but I don't fully understand its evolutionary line. I most know Chespin from 3 places. 1, appearing in Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon, particularly on the cover. 2, on the map of Pokemon X, in promotional material for the Pokemon World Championships 2025, most notably in the opening ceremonies trailer where it appears in a Letterman jacket. Anyway, let's get into the Bulbapedia article. Hello and welcome to the Bulbapedia section of the video. For those of you new this generation, first, I will be using this camera for the Bulbapedia section, Detective Pikachu section, fan art section, and if anyone submits any replies to my post, the post section. Second, the first thing I should acknowledge on this page is this box here as we skip it. Normally, I would skip this top box here, but I'll explain it for this one. So it says, for Pokemon Go information on this species, see the game section. Then we have a link to Pokemon before this and the Pokemon after this. And it says this article is about the species. For specific instances of the species, see Chespin disambiguation. So you probably noticed I highlighted that box there. Only highlight pieces of the article I'll be reading, so you know what I'm reading. I then go through this info box here. I'll read all this information. And then go up back to the article here. So this is Chespin, the spiny nut Pokemon, whose number is 0650. I don't usually read the Japanese here. This is what it looks like. Its type is grass. I will point out the tricolor border for this video, but usually I wouldn't do this unless it's a type that we haven't encountered before in the series. On this page, all 3 of the greens represent the grass type, but a dual type, the primary type would be these 2 inner colors, and the secondary type would be the border. Abilities: Overgrow. Bulletproof is its hidden ability. An ability is a game mechanic introduced in Gen 3 that provides a passive effect in battle or in the overworld. Individual Pokemon may have only 1 ability at a time. I still don't know what a hidden ability is. Gender ratio is 87.5% male and 12.5% female. Now you notice that's not actually a ratio, it's that it's percentages, but the ratio is 7 to 1. Catch rate is 45, or 11.9%. This is how likely you are to catch the Pokemon. So I'll read this note that's underlined here, that means it has a note, but I won't usually do that. When an ordinary Pokeball is thrown at full health in Gen 7, and that is how the percentage is determined. Breeding is egg group field, hatch time 20 cycles. An egg cycle is an internal value used for tracking how long until a Pokemon egg hatches in the core series Pokemon games, and it varies between different games. In this case, it's 20 cycles. And the cycle corresponds to steps that a player must take within the game. In Gen 6, it was 257 steps, so in this case, it would be 5,140 steps. I won't do the math for every article. Height is 1'4", or 0.4 meters. Weight is 19.8 pounds, or 9 kilograms. So I will always read the imperial and the metric units. Base experience yield, 63. Base experience yield is the average amount of experience that the Pokemon will get when they defeat this Pokemon. Leveling rate is medium slow. Leveling rate is how fast a Pokemon levels up, like how much EXP is needed before it levels up. So in this case, it's medium slow, so it takes a little while for it to level up, but generally, it's not the slowest. EXP is short for experience, and is a value that is used to help level up the Pokemon. EV yield is 1 in defense. I don't fully understand EV yield. Like, I know it's something that a Pokemon can get, but I really don't know beyond that. Like, I don't know what the 1 defense is. I don't know if, like, you evolve this Pokemon, it gets a higher stat in defense. I really don't know. Or maybe it prioritizes it with special items. I really don't know. I do know that EV stands for effort value, though. You can see that I also highlight the whole box, despite the fact I really only need a small bit of the box. It's just something I'm used to doing. I think it looks better. Shape is that. Shape is the shape that it's given in the Pokedex. Footprint is question mark, so starting in this generation, they didn't add footprints to Pokemon, at least most of the Pokemon anyway. I don't really know why they did that. I don't know why they stopped doing that, I guess. But I'm not gonna mention footprint anymore. I'm just gonna say the shape and move on to Pokedex color. Pokedex color is green. So this is the color it's given in the Pokedex. Usually this is accurate, but sometimes it's not. That's particularly true for orange, as there is no orange in the Pokedex color, so it's usually either given red or brown, sometimes yellow. It's more like a tan. Base friendship is 70. A Pokemon's base friendship is the value to which its friendship is set when the Pokemon is caught, received from an event or NPC, or received from a trade with another player. Base friendship is a level that a Pokemon needs. Sometimes they need to evolve. There's several ways to increase the friendship level. External links, so I don't read any of this. So Smogon more focuses on the competitive scene. Artwork on Bulbagarden Archives. Bulbagarden is the host website for Bulbapedia. You can also see the link is also here under this image. So then I start the article by reading this opening paragraph. This first paragraph has its name, its Japanese name, its typing, and the generation it was introduced in. Before I begin reading this, it may not sound the most natural. That's because this is the first time I'm reading this information, and I usually don't have time to fully reread all this information. They call this a cold read. That's what I'm doing. Chespin is a grass-type Pokemon introduced in Gen 6. The second paragraph is for evolution information, and/or information on alternate forms. Sometimes it's split into 2 paragraphs. It evolves to Coladin starting at level 16, which evolves to Chestnut starting at level 36. They use Roman numerals for each generation, and you'll notice that I said gen instead of generation. That's typically how it's shortened, and I'm used to saying it. I'll almost never say generation. So you saw that I didn't add an image for Coladin here, but I did for Chestnut, and that's because this little image up here has Coladin, so I use that as its representation, but otherwise I wouldn't, and I only add images to Pokemon I haven't talked about yet. This third and fourth paragraphs, these usually aren't here. Like, the third one is particularly special for, like, starter Pokemon or special Pokemon that maybe act as, like, the box art and stuff. And the fourth paragraph is talking about its, like, release, and, like, if it was leaked somewhere, or, like, how it was revealed to the public and stuff. Along with Fennekin and Froakie, Chespin is one of the first 3 partner Pokemon of Kalos, available at the beginning of Pokemon X and Y. Along with Fennekin, Froakie, Xerneas, and Yveltal, It was the first Gen 6 Pokemon to be revealed to the public on January 8th, 2013 as part of the Pokemon Direct broadcast. Biology, so this section covers description, personality, behavior information, specific location information. Most of this information comes from the Pokedex, but sometimes it can come from the anime, the manga, or in-game sources, and other spin-off games. So you can see there's this image here. I'll highlight it, read the description, and talk about it when we get to information related to it. They always put it at the beginning of the section, even if it's not related to the first paragraph. I've always disliked that. Biology, Chespin is a bipedal mammalian Pokemon. It is primarily light brown with darker arms and 3 triangular markings around its face. It has oval brown eyes, a triangular red nose, and rodent-like incisors. Its arms have 3 fingers, while its feet have 2 long claws. Covering its back is a tough green shell, which extends from its head to halfway down its tail. The tip of its tapered tail is orange. There is a small off-center hole in the shell on the back of Chespin's head and around the face. The shell has 4 leaf spikes. On the back of its head is another spike split into 3 parts. Chespin's shell can protect it from powerful attacks. The quills on its head are usually soft, but can be stiffened for attacking as well. Chespin's unique morphology, including its defensive quills and distinctive shell hole on the back of its head. So we've got this art. Looks to be an anime reference sheet. So you can see that I have scrolled down beyond the top of the paragraph. That's because I've already read part of this paragraph for the image, so I'll continue here. Despite having a curious nature that tends to get it in trouble, Chespin keeps an optimistic outlook and does not worry about small details. You see that I moved up a little bit. The reason for that is because I've had to redo this section, and I don't always know how to get it back in line with where the other clip was, so I don't even try to do that. By consuming tons of berries, the bark shell that covers Chespin's head and body will grow sturdier. It has been recently seen living in the terrarium of Blueberry Academy. So this final paragraph usually covers moves or abilities that are exclusive to it or were at some point. Prior to Gen 7, Chespin and its evolved forms were the only known Pokemon that could have Bulletproof as an ability. Evolution, so this is a sub-section within the biology section that covers a Pokemon's evolutionary line if they have one, if they evolve. In this case, it's the unevolved form, Chespin. It's usually just this very simple, but if there's like a split evolution or something, it'll go into more detail about that. Evolution, Chespin evolves into Quilladin, which evolves into Chestnut. I don't usually read this parenthetical statement, but I'll read it in this video. For specifics on this Pokemon's evolution in the games, refer to game data, evolution data. This links to and is talking about a specific section in the article that goes into more details about evolution. So, Chespin, Quilladin, Chestnut. So you'll notice I didn't read unevolved, first evolution, second evolution. I don't read that because it's kind of not necessary to do that. You probably understand. Game data covers a lot of the game information, so things like Pokédex entries, stats, moves, game locations, in both the main games and the side games. The models. NPC appearances will sometimes appear before Pokedex entries. Game data, Pokedex entries. So I'll read this first sentence here, and I'll highlight just this part, as I will do through all of these. I will just highlight the relevant things that I'm talking about, not the whole section like I did when I said Pokedex entries, which I will also not typically do. I will usually just go from Pokedex entries Gen 6 X. I won't read this sentence again because all Gen 6 Pokemon will have this. This Pokemon was unavailable prior to Gen 6. So you can see it's all the games that exist in Gen 6. And then over here on the right, they're the different Pokedex like areas you can find them in. Like the Pokedexes, I guess there are. I don't understand why there are 3 Kalos Pokedex entries. They're the same games, and then we got the Hoenn one for Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. I don't read any of this part, I just read the name of the game and the Pokedex entry. I will do my impression of the Gen 5 Pokedex voice. I have heard the Gen 6 voice, it's a female, but I don't have an example of it to sort of try to copy. So I will just use the male voice until I have an example that I can reference. In Gen 6 X, the quills on its head are usually soft. When it flexes them, the points become so hard and sharp that they can pierce rock. Why? Such a thick shell of wood covers its head and back that even a direct hit from a truck wouldn't phase it. So it looks like Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are going to copy X and Y's That's how it usually has been, I think, for the last few generations. What I do is I don't read it again. I'm just gonna say Omega Ruby is X's entry and Alpha Sapphire is Y's entry. In Gen 7, so there is no entries, I guess. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna read this one again for the first video in this generation, but I'm not gonna read it for any others. So Pokemon has no Pokedex entries in Gen 7. So you can see that I didn't scroll all the way down to Gen 7. That's because I don't know where my camera is, so I'm just keeping it safe. Usually go back one generation. In this case I had to go back two because there isn't any entries in Gen 7. So Gen 8, again, like Gen 7, I'm just gonna read the sentence for this video and none after this until we get to Gen 7. This Pokemon has no Pokedex entries in Gen 8. In Gen 9, Scarlet, when Chespin tenses up, just before landing a headbutt, the spikes on its head sharpen to points, piercing the enemy's body on contact. Violet, eating lots of berries makes the bark shell that covers Chespin's head and body grow sturdier. So Legends EA looks to be X's entry. So in the past, just in the last couple months here, that's usually been the case. It's usually been an X or a Y one. Sometimes it's different. If it is different, I'll read it. So in this case, I would say Legends ZA is X and Omega Ruby's entry. Then we have this Pokedex image here. So this one is for Scarlet and Violet. There are 3 that it could exist. Paldea, Kitakami, and Blueberry. There's also ones that exist for the Alola Pokedex, and we'll get into more of that information when we cover it. So this is Chespin in the Blueberry Pokedex. See, there are 5 of them here in this cave, it looks like, underground. I usually comment on the image like this. Not all of the images are like the Alolan just has an alternate model. For the Gen 9 images, I will always sort of comment on it, sort of explain what's going on in the image. The Blueberry Pokedex refers to the Indigo Disc DLC of Scarlet and Violet. And you'll see that I didn't scroll past the bottom of this image, and that's because, for whatever reason, I like to have it like this. I guess I don't want to reveal the next bit of information. Game locations. So, normally I wouldn't scroll down this far. I would just continue from the image, because I don't read any of this information. I just scroll past it, because it's not really, I don't have time to read all of this, and it's not something I'm really interested in learning right now. This section covers all the locations in the main games, where you can find them. And there's also a section after this called Inside Games, which covers the locations in the side games. And there's also sometimes one called In Events, that covers all the events that a Pokemon has appeared in. I will typically not cover any of those. I usually just scroll past them. So, game locations, side game locations, and events. It looks like there's no events here. So this was a thing last generation as well, where they don't actually feature the held items for whatever reason. I don't know why the label is here. Also don't really know why the in events label is here either, but usually there is held items. They'll have a little box that covers all the games that the held items appear in. I will skip past the held items if it is empty, and I'll go straight to stats. Stats, so this is another section. Sometimes I'll scroll up to where my camera's just below it. Other times I'll kind of leave it like this. It's at the bottom. This is a subsection that just covers the base stats. That's all that's really relevant for this generation. Base stats are, I think, the stats you get when you catch it. I don't actually know what base stats are. I don't read any of the range information or these notes, and I'm not going to do it even today. So I'm just going to read the numbers on the left here. Even though I'm just reading those, I still like to highlight the whole box. I think it's just because it looks nicer. HP 56, attack 61, defense 65, special attack 48, special defense 45, speed 38 for a total of 313. Type effectiveness. So this is another box that I will either scroll up to or leave at the bottom of the screen. Type effectiveness is a subsection that covers the effectiveness of the different types to this Pokemon. Sometimes there'll be a note at the bottom explaining special exceptions, particularly relating to its abilities. I'd read that. There's also this note, and of course it's split into damage normally by, weak to, immune to, and resistant to. So I will read this note at the top here in this video, but none for the rest of the generation, so Under normal battle conditions in Gen 9, this Pokemon is damaged normally by normal, fighting, rock, ghost, steel, psychic, dragon, dark, and fairy. I don't say 1 as that is implied by the category name. Weak to flying, poison, bug, fire, and ice. All for double, so you see that I say double instead of 2. Immune to nothing, so I say nothing instead of none. Resistant to ground, water, grass, and electric, all for half. You noticed that instead of going through each individual type's effectiveness, I grouped them together in each category. Learn set by leveling up, so this is another subsection that I try to scroll up all the way to where it's just below my camera. Learn set covers all the moves that a Pokemon can get, so through leveling up, through transferring it from a previous generation, through TM, or TR in some cases, by breeding, by tutoring, by prior evolution, if there is one, by transfer from a prior evolution, TCG only moves, and animated series only moves. I'll read this sentence here, but I won't normally read it. Chespin is available in Scarlet and Violet and Legends ZA. By leveling up is a subsection that covers the moves it gets by leveling up. In this case, because it exists in both Scarlet and Violet and Legends ZA, it has been split into their level up moves in those 2 games. So that's what SV stands for, is Scarlet and Violet. We got this box here, so you can see that it has the previous generations. We're not going to cover any of those. And we also have these different groups: level, move, type, category, power, accuracy, and PB. I will not read any of this. I'm just going to read the level and the move that it gets. If there's one move in any of these kind of boxes, I will read all of that information. This is also another box that I highlight the entire thing for, kind of. When I scroll down, I'll explain that more. Level 1, Growl and Vine Whip. 8 Rollout, 11 Bite, 15 Leech Seed, 18 Pin Missile, 27 Takedown, 32 Seed Bomb. I'll continue, but I won't highlight any of this because it is just a continuation of the same box, so I don't feel like I need to continue to do that. That's true for any of these kinds of boxes here, the long boxes, as I believe you'll probably be able to follow along. 35 Mud Shot, 42 Body Slam, 45 Pain Split, and 48 Wood Hammer. Normally, I wouldn't read these notes here, but since this is the first one in this generation, I'll read them. So, bold indicates a move that gets stab when used by Chespin. Italic indicates a move that gets stab only when used by an evolution of Chespin. So stab is same type attack bonus. So what that means is that it adds more damage when it's the same type as the Pokemon. Legends ZA, so that's what ZA stands for. Same thing, I'll just read all of them. A plus move is a signature mechanic of Pokemon Legends ZA that boosts the effect of any move it is used on. So this is something I will do. So I'll say at 1, it learns Vine Whip and boosts at 10. So that's kind of an example of what I'll do here. So at 1, it learns Vine Whip and Growl and boosts at 10. At 5, it learns Growth and boosts at 8. At 8, it learns Rollout and boosts at 11. At 11, it learns Bite and boosts at 14. At 15, it learns Leech Seed and boosts at 18. At 18, it learns Pin Missile and boosts at 21. At 27, it learns Takedown and boosts at 30. At 35, it learns Brick Break and boosts at 38. At 42, it learns Body Slam and boosts at 45. And at 48, it learns Wood Hammer and boosts at 51. By TM is another section that I try to scroll up to my camera. Like the other one, it's split between Scarlet and Violet and Legends ZA. TMs are technical machines. They're one-time use items that can be used to teach Pokemon a move. I'll say TM001, that learns Takedown. Then I don't add the 00s from that point onwards, so 7, it learns Protect. 12, Low Kick. 20, Trailblaze. 25, Facade. 27, Aerial Ace. 28, Bulldoze. 31, Metal Claw. 32, Swift. 33, Magical Leaf. 35, Mud Shot. 36, Rock Tomb. 43, Fling. 47, Endure. 49, Sunny Day. 50, Rain Dance. 55, Dig. 56, Bullet Seed. 58, Brick Break. 59, Zen Headbutt. 61, Shadow Claw. 66, Body Slam. 68, Thunder Punch. 70, Sleep Talk. 71, Seed Bomb. 73, Drain Punch. 74, Reflect. 81, Grass Knot. 83, Poison Jab. 84, Stomping Tantrum. 85, Rest. 86, Rock Slide. 90, Spikes. 99 Iron Head, 103 Substitute, 111 Giga Drain, 119 Energy Ball, 130 Helping Hand, 137 Grassy Terrain, 146 Grass Pledge, 159 Leaf Storm, 168 Solar Beam, 171 Terra Blast, 172 Roar, 183 Super Fang, 192 Focus Punch, 194 Grassy Glide, 202 Pain Split, 205 Endeavor, and 224 Curse. Legends ZA, so you can see how the image looks different between Scarlet and Violet and Legends ZA. That's just how they chose to graphically show this item. TM001 Headbutt, 5 Roar, 10 Brick Break, 12 Rock Slide, 17 Protect, 22 Aerial Ace, 23 Thunder Punch, 26 Energy Ball, 27 Swift, 28 Dig, 31 Reflect, 33 Body Slam, 35 Endure, 36 Rock Tomb, 40 Bullet Seed, 42 Giga Drain, 46 Mudshot, 58 Iron Head, 59 Zen Headbutt, 61 Shadow Claw, 64 Solar Beam, 77 Poison Jab, 78 Bulldoze, 85 Substitute, 88 Spikes, and 91 Curse. By Breeding is a subsection that talks about moves that are given from a parent to this Pokemon, because breeding is a very complicated thing. What we do is we just read the parent and the move. Again, if it were one, we'd read all the categories. This is just one, so we'll just say Zangoose gives it Belly Drum. We have like this bunch of Pokemon in this one that can give it Curse. So I say this group gives it Curse. And then we have this TM here. That is a special thing, has a special note, and we'll read that note. This group gives it Quick Guard. TM070 gives it Spikes, and so there's this note. No Pokemon in the Field A group can learn Spikes via level up. However, the move is available via TM090, can be passed down from the Sandshrew line, Lowland Sandslash, the Wooper line, Delibird, the Chespin line, Meowscarada, and Orthworm, or copied via Mirror Herb. This group gives it Super Fang, this group gives it Synthesis, and Mian Xiao gives it Wide Guard. Side game data, this is a box where I don't always scroll up to the top. Sometimes I'll just scroll through it because I don't read most of this information. The only two things I'll read are if it's in Sleep or in New Pokemon Snap. They have like Pokedex-like entries, and so I like to read those. So got all this. Evolution data, this is another one where I try to not show beyond this. So this covers just more in depth of the evolution data stuff we saw earlier. Chespin, level 16. Quilladin, level 36. Chestnut, I forgot to mention this earlier. You can see how this one is a dual type, so it has a different border than these two who are single type. These are the symbol that represents rare candy. These help level up your Pokemon, like they just automatically level it up if you feed them one of them. This is sprites, so this is kind of a misnomer now. So this is just models going forward here. So this shows off all the different models it's had. I'll talk about them, kind of compare them, the different models. It's a lot different now that I don't have like sprites to compare to the models. So you'll see I don't highlight any of this box, and it's just a long list of models, or not so long list I guess at this point. Also read this first sentence in this video, but not in the other Gen 6 video, so this Pokemon was unavailable prior to Gen 6. In Gen 6, got the original models here, and we got the regular and the shiny in the front and the back, both appear. So the shiny, I'll explain. It's the hat shell is this brown color rather than this green. The nose and the tip of the tail are yellow. This darker brown is this dark brown. Looks like the tan might also be a little bit of a different color. So you can see how I didn't go in each of these games, because generally these are all across the generation, they're generally going to be the same. If they are different models between games, I will point it out. I'm very unlikely that they're going to do that at this point. And Gen 7, I assume these are more or less going to be the same. Looks like this might have been changed a little bit. But yeah, mostly it just seems to be the same models between these, because it's all in the 3DS, so I don't know why they would change the models if it's the same Pokemon. Again, I'll read this in this one, but not in future ones. So this Pokemon is unavailable in Gen 8. You can see how there's not Gen 9 models. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's like something they can't easily extract and like make pictures for, or what exactly the reason is why Bulbapedia doesn't feature them at this moment. Maybe they will someday, but as of right now, they don't. Cross-generations. Normally I don't say  but I'll just say home. And you got these models. which, they're better quality, but it's kind of hard to compare them. This is just like an image that appears in the Pokemon Home app. You'll notice the home box doesn't contain the back. It usually doesn't do this. There is a back image, but it will only show that off if there's like a notable difference between the backs that need to be shown off. Also, you'll notice that I scrolled all the way up, and that happens a lot. I kind of ignore that rule of, like, cutting it off. Animation, so normally I wouldn't cut the video like I did, so I would just sort of stop here naturally. In animation refers to all information related to any official animation from the main series to the Poketoons to Pokemon Generations to sometimes even Pokemon Concierge, stuff like that. I don't go through most of this information. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say Chespin in Pokemon, the series XY. You'll see I didn't highlight this image. I just don't do that. I think I used to, but I stopped doing that. It's a lot easier for me. And then I will say the big ones are Clements, Chespin, and Chespy. And then I'll scroll through these. You can read this if you want. I don't have time to read all of this. Got all this. Pokedex entries is a section that I read. So I will say the series name, what episode it is, say the source and the entry. In this video, I'll also say the Pokemon's name. Normally, I will only talk about the subject if it's a different thing than just the Pokemon. Much like the game Pokedex entries, I will read it in my impression of Ash Ketchum's Gen 5 Pokedex voice. You'll also see that I'll highlight each of these little segments. In XY, episode 4, for Chespin in Serena's Pokedex. Chespin, the spiny nut Pokemon. Chespin can flex the soft spikes on its head, making them so stiff and sharp that it can even pierce through stone. In XY, episode 10, for Chespin in Ash's Pokedex. Chespin, the spiny nut Pokemon. Chespin can flex the soft spikes on its head, making them so stiff and sharp they can even pierce through stone. Gotcha and evolutions, I'll probably just say those and then move on. In the manga, this section is all about the various manga appearances of the Pokemon. Manga is the Japanese name for comic books, if you're not aware. The primary manga is Pokemon Adventures. There's this image here. Again, I don't highlight it, but we have Chespin in Pokemon Adventures. It's all in color. It's not always gonna be in color, but this one in particular is in color, and I'll point that out usually. Like the in animation section, I don't read any of this, because again, I don't have time for that. Got all this. So sometimes this happens. It has a Pokedex entry in the manga. So I will read all of this, similar to how I did in the anime section. So manga chapter and entry. Usually I won't say manga chapter or entry. I'll just say in Pokemon Adventures, in chapter 552. So PS means Pokemon Special. That is what it translates to from Japanese, what a lot of fans still call it, even though its official name in English is Pokemon Adventures. Such a thick shell of wood covers its head and back that even a direct hit from a truck wouldn't phase it. In the TCG, so it's just this, the main article, Chespin, TCG. Normally, I literally just say in the TCG and then I move on. Other appearances describes a Pokemon's appearance in other projects weren't covered in the previous ones, like the Smash Bros. Series, or the Detective Pikachu movie, or like music videos sometimes, or stuff like that. Other appearances, Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS/Wii U, so this describes its appearance, including trophy appearance in the game. Chespin appears as a Pokeball summon. It uses Seed Bomb to damage opponents. So you can see I added the footage showing off the Pokemon. Sometimes it has an image representing it, and if it does, I wouldn't add it. Similarly, if there wasn't the trophy image here, I would add that. Trophy information, Chespin appears as a trophy in both the 3DS and Wii U versions of the game. So you can see I highlighted both it and the trophy image, because Chespin trophy in Super Smash Bros. For 3DS. And I'll keep that highlighted throughout the whole section. So you got the two different versions. NA is North America, and PAL stands for Phase Alternating Line. I don't know what that means, but that's the certain region that the games appear in, I guess, and I guess they have two different versions of it. So, for now, I will still continue to use the voice I used the last generation, which was a silly, kind of British, womanish voice. But when I switch over to the female Pokedex voice, I will change this voice as I like to make them different to sort of represent the two different series. In the North American version, Chespin the Spiny Nut Pokémon. This grass-type Pokémon is one of the new Pokémon you can choose when starting a new adventure. The spikes on its head could stop a truck. It can evolve into Quilladin. Its Seed Bomb move will scatter bombs around it that instantly explode. In the PAL region, Chespin, the Spiny Nut Pokémon. This grass-type Pokémon is one of the ones you can choose at the start of Pokémon X and Y. The thick shell covering its head and back is so strong it can protect Chespin's body from almost any impact. Its Seed Bomb attack will scatter bombs around it that instantly explode. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, like the other Super Smash Bros. Game, this just covers its appearance in the game, so Chespin reappears as a Pokeball summon, retaining the same behavior from the previous game. Chespin also appears as a spirit. Spirits are unlockables in Ultimate that are represented by a stock image, so I don't add it when I mention spirits. Trivia, so this is a section that covers miscellaneous other facts. Sometimes it has facts that we've already covered, or facts that are also in, like, the origin or name origin sections here, or should be, but for some reason are put in the trivia section. Anyway, trivia, and I'll only highlight a point at a time, although in this case, because it's just a sub-point next to the point, I'll highlight both of them. Chespin is the only Pokemon who has a base stat total of 313. Prior to Gen 7, Woobat also had a base stat total of 313. Origin. So this is a subsection that covers the origin or speculated origin of a Pokemon. Chespin is based on a hedgehog and also appears to have been based on a chestnut, shoot, or burr. The brown spot found on the back of Chespin's head may be a subtle reference to Bendor spots, most commonly found on a chestnut horse. Bendor spots occur in breeds with chestnut coloration, and most chestnuts seem to have at least one. Name origin. So this is a subsection that covers the name origin or speculated name origin of the Pokemon. Name origin, Chespin may be a combination of chestnut, urchin, an old term for hedgehog, pin, chinkapin, name of some species of chestnuts, and spina, Latin for thorn. Harimoran may be a combination of Harin Zumi, hedgehog, Hari, needle, and Moran, French for chestnut. So you can see, I probably didn't do the best Japanese or even French for that matter. I will try to say its name. I apologize. I am pretty much monolingual, so I don't know how to speak Japanese or French. In other languages, this covers its name in other languages and the origin, or perhaps speculated origin of their names. I will just say in other languages. See also covers related articles. I don't read or highlight this section or the rest of the article. References or the references used in the articles. External links here, so this is also a section that can sometimes have, like, links like references. But there's also this box here, the First Partners Trios. Some pages have boxes like this. This is, of course, the one specific to the starters. And so I'll talk about, like, here's First Partner Trios, and, like, how we're on the 6th one. This is Chespin for the Kalos region. But I'll just generally scroll past all this. And then talk about the Super Smash Bros. Series. There's another box for this as well, so links to the different articles about these topics. And then, much like the top box, I won't reference this bottom box again. And this is the Project Pokedex box that kind of talks about how they're trying to make comprehensive articles about each of the Pokemon. And I don't acknowledge this box either. And then there's the categories, which I also don't acknowledge. That's it. Let's move on. Now let's watch Chespin's first scene in the anime. Hello and welcome to the anime portion of the video. Before we begin, if you're new this generation, I don't appear on camera for the anime section, except for movies and a few exceptions for episodes. Anyway, today we are watching episode 802, A Battle of Aerial Mobility. In this episode, all you really need to know for the scene is that there's this girl. Her name was probably said earlier, but I don't remember her name. Who's come to get her starter Pokemon from Professor Sycamore. And I guess that's an assistant leading the Pokemon. Chespin, Fennekin, Froakie.
These are the Kalos Pokemon new trainers may choose from. Fennekin, Chespin, and Froakie. Which Pokémon will you choose as your partner?
Oh, okay. And that is Chespin's first in the anime. Let's move on. Now let's see why other people love Chespin. Now let's look at fan art. Hello and welcome to the fan art section of the video. Nobody sent in fan art, so instead we're looking at DeviantArt fan art. For those of you who aren't familiar with the series, what we do is we go through these images until I find an image that doesn't contain a Chespin. Before we begin, though, I want to go over the rules. I will feature AI images. This is not a promotion of the use of AI image generators, as they are often built on stolen images, which is likely true for those that produce high-quality Pokémon images. I'm featuring these images because I don't want to discourage the creativity of the individuals who choose to use them, but I do feel it would be better if creators either made the art themselves or commissioned artists. While AI may one day provide artists with a tool, generative AI is currently being used in place of the artistic process. When I come across an AI image, I will not praise the image like I would for human-made images. In fact, I may even criticize the piece. 2. If an image contains a creature that I could reasonably say doesn't look like the Pokémon, I will not count the image. If I see the image before we start looking at fan art, I will skip it. If I come across this image while looking at the fan art, we will stop there and move on. 3. You probably noticed the box here. It will no longer appear when we get into the single image view of the art. I use it for 2 purposes. A, what it says, and B, I use it to cover art that I will not be talking about, barring art that is featured in the same line as the final piece I'll be looking at. 4. I don't start with a Pokémon fusion, which is a piece that combines elements of 2 or more Pokémon into one being. However, I will feature the art if it appears after the first image, so long as I can tell the Pokémon is featured in the fusion. If you make this art and the art doesn't feature the names and or images of the Pokémon that are being fused, please put the names of the Pokémon you are fusing in the description or tags. While this may be a character you and or your fans are familiar with, people like me who are randomly stumbling upon it won't necessarily know what Pokémon they are, especially if it is highly stylized or anthropomorphic, if the Pokémon aren't mostly anthropomorphic already. I discourage the stylization of a Pokémon to a near unrecognizable state. 5. Like the Bulbapedia section. If I mention a Pokémon I haven't mentioned in the series yet and it doesn't appear in the image, is stylized to the point where I believe a proper image is needed and or is part of a fusion, I will add the image for that Pokémon. 6. If I have to watch the Deviant, which is the name of users on DeviantArt, to look at the image, I will skip the image if it's the first image, or stop at the image if it's not the first image, as I don't wish to watch the Deviant just for this series. 7. If the art is a literature post, I will not read it and skip the post if it's not the first piece, or stop at the post if it's not the first piece. 8. If the art is a video, not a GIF, I will skip the video if it's the first piece, or stop at the video, which I won't watch if it's not the first piece. 9. If I come across an image that I have covered in a previous video, I will talk about it again, barring a few exceptions, but we'll talk about those when we encounter them. 10. If the Pokemon appears as an outfit instead of as a physical being, I won't count the image and will skip it if it's the first piece, or stop at the image if it's not the first piece. 11. If the Pokemon appears as an object or a machine, barring images of statues, I won't count the image and will skip it if it's the first piece and stop at the image if it's not the first piece. 12. In this multiple image view, I will blur any image that I feel is inappropriate for YouTube, and we will not cover the image. If it's not the first, I will stop at the image before it. 13. Some images will contain violence or swearing despite using a safe filter. I won't blur or exclude those images unless I feel the violence is too grotesque, and will instead set the video for not for kids. This is also true for usernames. 14. If the image contains another being transforming into the Pokemon and I feel it is safe for YouTube, I won't count the image, as I feel this is technically still the original character. If it's the first image, I'll skip it, but if it's not, I'll stop at it. 15. If the first instance of the Pokemon is surrounded or followed by images or an image that doesn't contain the Pokemon, I will do the fan art section in the single image view, and I'll explain what I say when I come across one of those. 16. Something I have adopted toward the end of Gen 5 is that if an image of a Pokemon is surrounded by AI images and or stolen art, usually that would be in-game assets or anime screenshots, as I don't know if I would know if an image is stolen otherwise, I will do the single image view and only cover that image. That's it. Let's get into it. This is Chespin's Earth Day Gemini AI by D Master 322. So AI art of Chespin and it's Earth Day and got all these trainers and not Pokemon. This is Chespin 4K wallpaper by Constanza AI. It's almost Chespin image of AI. This is Chespin by JJ Sponge 120. It's a nice image of Chespin here. Like the texture. This is Chespin by Junior Bueno 2007. Got this nice model. It might just be a model from the games though. This is Chespin by Sparkplug USA. Got this cute image of Chespin here. Very well done. This is Chespin commissioned by Bat Bites the Bat. So we've got this nice art of a Chespin here. Maybe it's like falling or something. Interesting. This is Chespin Render by Tony Igo. I'm pretty sure this is just Who's That Pokemon image of Chespin. Chespin Swinging on a Vine by Hania 386. Looks to be the official art of Chespin. Not really attached to the vine, I guess, but I guess it's supposed to be a grass Pokemon, so maybe the vine's coming out of its head or something. This is Chespin Pokemon by Retratos Anime. So it's a very nice image of Chespin here. Very well done. This is Chespin by Woolavast. It's got this nice image of a Chespin here. Looks kind of dirty. Interesting. This isn't actually a Chespin, so we'll move on. Thanks to everyone who submitted fan art. I will be streaming tonight, as I simply don't have time. Tomorrow I'll be talking about Quilladin. As always, this isn't my proper outfit, you'll see me tomorrow. Hello and welcome to the end screen. Normally there'd be music here, but since this is our first instance of this, I thought I'd talk about it. So we ran into something that wasn't for kids. That'd be the only reason I have it in screen. See, it features both the previous video and the next video. If you're watching this before I uploaded the Quilladin video, it features another video. I'm not really sure which one it is. It also features the full Pokemon Year Cycle playlist, as well as a subscribe feature. I'd appreciate if you would subscribe. Also, I'll take this opportunity to re-show my Patreon. I really do need people to subscribe to my Patreon to upload more videos. Thank you for watching. Bye!